we turn our attention to a very special group of people in this world, people who play a pivotal role in children's early development, starting from a pregnancy and throughout the lifespan, fathers. So let's take a moment to celebrate everyday moments born of love. All of what you are about to see are images from real families in Florida today.
And take care of you always.
Oh my goodness. Happy birthday to you. Blow it.
Should I go in here? Okay.
Adela, ven atrás. Vamos. ¿Ya bailaste? Vamos ahora, ¿dónde? Vamos. Hey. La 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 la.
Let's slide. So I'll slide right behind you. You go first, okay? Whoa! Daddy's coming!
La di la 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 di la la di la.
Okay, so I can see in the chat we got you all smiling, and that was the point. So often it seems like parent engagement speaks primarily to mothers, but we know that fathers play a big role in children's lives. In fact, the 2022 Florida budget included nearly $70 million for father engagement to support involved fatherhood and at-risk families, as well as mentorship programs for youth in the justice system. Our next panel will share some tips for how to maximize this investment, how to do father engagement right. So let's welcome our moderator, Derek McGee, a lobbyist and pastor based in Tallahassee. He's also a member of our board, but most importantly, father to two wonderful young people. And that role of father is one that takes high priority in his life. Derek, over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor and a privilege to be spending this time with you to talk about something so critical to me, which is fatherhood. And I have the honor of moderating this next panel. And the two persons who are on the panel with me are actually fathers. We have Christopher Brown. Christopher is the president of the National Fatherhood Initiative. Christopher, we welcome you to our panel. And secondly, we have Dexter Nelson Jr., who is a father and also the former Head Start Policy Council member based out of Orlando. And I want to welcome both of you to our panel and thank you both for making time for this conversation. Because our time is limited, we're going to delve right into the topic at hand. Christopher, I'll first begin with you. You work all across the United States to help agencies and organizations properly engage fathers in their work. And for that, I want to tell you thank you for spending so much time in that investment. Can you share with us a quick list of do's and don'ts when it comes to father engagement?
Absolutely, Derek. And I'd like to focus more on do's and don'ts. So I've got 6 of those,
Awesome.
And I'll run quickly through those. First of all, it's important that organizations and communities create a father-friendly, or what we call a father-ready environment that says dads are welcome here. The second thing is to create materials and programs specific to dads. If you want dads to come in and get parent education, you must call dads out with language and messages that speak specifically to them. You need to create a safe space that encourages dads to seek help. So position help seeking as masculine. It's important to engage moms as you engage dads, to talk with moms about why the father's involvement is so important. Don't leave moms out of the equation like we've left dads out of the equation. Build staff capacity so they're comfortable talking with dads about the issues that are important to dads. And finally, in your community, link agencies and organizations doing work with parents and fathers so they can learn from one another.
Thank you for that, Christopher. And I share with you in our conversation, here in Tallahassee, a personal friend of mine just began us with the 24/7 dad curriculum. For those who don't know, Christopher is co-founder of that, and I really want to appreciate you publicly. I've thoroughly enjoyed going through it. It's been a great conversation with fathers and hearing their hearts. And these are fathers from all spectrums of life and career, some who have been incarcerated and have been released. And so being in a room in that setting, I really want to implore you and applaud you for just the vision behind that. And someone who's going through that now, I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Dexter, hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. So Dexter, you've been a father for more than 15 years. During that time, I'm sure you visited some doctors' offices, some libraries, meetings in that role. Were there places where you felt more welcome than others? And can you remember a service or program or even an event for your children where you did not feel invited or welcome as a father? Please share.
Yes, sir. I experienced both with public school and the doctor's office. Of course, as a father, first question is, oh, where's mom? That doesn't matter. Dad's here with the baby. Let's check on this baby and see what's going on, And then, as I kind of kept going back, then the doctor kind of warmed up to me and started, opening up and sharing insights, And later, that was early on, but just recently, I just took my daughter out of private school and she went to high school. And the public school system made me jump through so many hoops to sign her up for school. Oh, you need mom's notarized letter, you need this, to where they just make it impossible. And like I told her, I say, you want more father involvement, but you make it harder for us to be involved, and then kind of what was crazy with it, like 2 weeks later, she called me back. Hey, Dad, do you have mom's new number? I'm like, see what I'm telling you? You could get in touch with me, but you can't get in touch with her. So why do you make it so hard for me to be a part of my child's school curriculum? Because whatever legislation was passed 20 million years ago that doesn't, hold up today's society, you make it hard for us to be a part of our kids' lives.
Absolutely. There's definitely a misnomer that we're part-time. It's always interesting when you're with your child, the assumption is you're babysitting your own child versus actually invested in your child's life. I have a question I want both of you all to consider answering. We've come a long way from father engagement the last 10 years, which I'm encouraged by. Still work to be done, but it's come a long way. Can you both share an example or two of organizations you've worked with in Florida that has changed in that time? What tips can you share for others to learn from? Christopher, we'll start with you.
Sure, I'll share two organizations with you, Derek. The first is based in Tallahassee, and it's a statewide organization called the Ounce of Prevention Fund of Florida. They're a state affiliate of Prevent Child Abuse America, and they do a lot of work with the state health department in Florida. Specifically, what they build capacity in across the state is to help staff who conduct home visits with expectant and new parents to do a better job of engaging fathers. So we've worked closely with them to build their capacity so they can in turn build the capacity of the organizations that they work with to better engage fathers. And then a direct service provider in Tampa that I'd like to mention is called Reach Up Inc. That's Reach Up Inc. They offer a great model for father engagement, particularly in what's called a Healthy Start environment.
Awesome. Dexter, how about for you?
Well, I got my start with Head Start, Orange County Head Start program. My first year there, I noticed it was maybe 2 or 3 dads walking the hallways, come drop their kids off in the morning. So I got in touch with the center supervisor, And the next year, we was able to start a fatherhood initiative group, which actually, Christopher, it's nice to know that you were a co-founder of 24/7 Dads, because we just recently implemented that in our system. So thank you for that as well, because that's a very good program, and we're happy to be a part of it. And
You're welcome.
So probably about 7 years now, we've been initiating the fatherhood, started a fatherhood breakfast, and the women of the program say, oh no, Dad's not gonna come out on Saturday morning. And it was raining, and we ended up with 81 fathers.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Grandfathers, uncles, whatever guy is in the child's life, let them come out and be a part so they can see what we're doing, and we can share this information and make them better,
Absolutely. And I think that's important. Something you said, Dexter, is there are some scenarios where dad may not be there for whatever experience in life, but grandfathers have stepped in, or an uncle has taken on that father role. And really that investment into that young person's life, whether a son or a daughter, but the role should not be minimized, that the impact of a father in their child's life, not minimizing mom, but there are fathers who desire and work hard and are actively engaged in their children's lives. Another question I want to ask you both to consider answering is, there are ways we can help elevate a father's presence in the child's life and within their communities. Do both of you have any recommendations for partners, spouses, or co-parents to help in that regard? And Dexter, I'll begin with you first.
Well, as I look around our community, I see a bunch of opportunities. We quit to blame the teenagers, but we don't stop and try to help them. Like for example, my son is in Little League football, and I see so many kids out there that don't have a father figure. Their mom's bringing them to practice every day, and I just reach out to them. Hey, you want to come over, my son's, this weekend, and I take time out to try to, talk to them and see if there's any void that I can help fill in their life so that they could grow up and be better, Not to say that I'm gonna change everything in their life, but if I could give them a little of what I give my son or other kids in the program, then I think that'll help.
Awesome, I like that. Christopher, how about for you?
Well, so just like I shared for organizations, individuals can create safe places in their community where dads can gather that create a supportive environment for growth and change as fathers and men. So that can take place in a traditional nonprofit, social service organization, a school, a church, or any place where dads can gather easily in the community. And secondly, don't be afraid to ask dads to step up and take on a holistic role as a provider. So step out of the traditional financial provider role and also provide emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually.
Absolutely. Christopher, while you're speaking, I have a question that I want you to answer for all of us. Both Dexter and I both made reference to 24/7 Dads in the curriculum. Can you just share with us the thought behind that, the genesis for what that is? I mean, again, we're implementing here in Tallahassee. Dexter mentioned about there in Orlando. It's been a great benefit for us and the dads that I sit with. Some of them I didn't know prior to this, right? And we've had great conversation, hearing their life stories, kind of going through this journey together. And it's been very encouraging to meet these fathers in my same community. Again, some of whom I didn't even know prior to us doing this. But can you just share what began that thought in that journey to create 24/7 Dads?
Sure. Well, National Fatherhood Initiative started in 1994, and we were primarily a public advocacy organization that raised awareness across the country and in the U.S. Congress about the importance of dads. As we started to evolve, kind of going from NFI 1.0 to NFI 2.0 around the year 2000, we started to notice that there was a lack of high quality research and evidence-based programming specifically for dads that could be run in communities. And so we did a lot of research, brought in experts, and worked to develop the 24/7 Dad program. And so the program itself focuses on 5 cross-cultural characteristics that mark any good father: self-awareness, caring for self, parenting skills, fathering skills, and relationship skills. And so the program has been found by independent research to increase those 5 characteristics in a great diversity of dads.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Dexter, you made reference earlier to just some challenges you had early on. I want you, if you can, for the fathers who may be listening now or may listen to the replay of today's summit, if you can give some words of encouragement to those fathers who just feel very discouraged. They're just going through, whether it's a bureaucratic process, they just gotten discouraged with just the tossing to and fro of the struggle, feel like throwing their hands up and saying it's not worth it anymore. What would you say to those fathers to keep them engaged and in the fight?
I would tell them it's worth it. It's worth the fight. It's worth the battle to see and be able to tuck your kids in every night. Tell them you love them. Cook them dinner every night. My greatest inspiration is, you know, I grew up with a sister that I didn't know. And when I think when I was like 23, she knocked on my door looking for my dad, the same name. And she had a great bitter of resentment for my dad because he didn't come around. And like she says, I just wanted him to fight. Even if my mom or my auntie or my grandma didn't want him around, I wanted him to fight. And he just gave up. You know, he was like, well, I'm gonna go over here to my son who I can be in his life easily. You see what I'm saying? So it's gonna be worth it. You don't wanna have your child grow up resenting you because you didn't put forth the effort.
I appreciate that counsel, and I actually agree with you. Absolutely agree with you. Again, I'm fortunate to be the father of a 16-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter. My son's a junior in high school, and I tell people one of the great joys is I'm still my son's hero. Right? We spend a lot of time together, and that's a great joy to have. I didn't grow up with that same story, same scenario, but it's definitely worth it. When you look back on it, it's definitely worth the investment you're making. So I appreciate that. Christopher, going back to you with your work across the country, share with us a couple of just misnomers that I think that people have as it relates to fathers. Just some things that you through NFIU, I've been working very, very hard to combat. That's created the great work that you all are doing.
Well, first of all, that you can work with dads from a generic parenting perspective. One of the things that we've learned is in our culture, parenting is a code word for mom. And so when you have language that just addresses parents, oftentimes dads think that means it's for mom. So that's why I said earlier, you need to call dads out specific with language to them. Fathers, dads, and messages that resonate with fathers. The second thing is to simply acknowledge the unique and irreplaceable role that dads play in the lives of their children. Unfortunately, research shows that most Americans think dads are replaceable, that they can be replaced by any individual who can simply step into that role. And we know from research that that's not the case. We also know from the actions of children who grow up in father-absent homes that they often seek out their biological father and seek to know him. So there's a special connection between fathers and their kids that we need to honor, and we need to start building the infrastructure in this country to be able to activate.
That's awesome. I'll share with the viewing audience. And again, we definitely salute moms, all the investment moms make. And this is definitely not ignoring what moms do. But there's been a commitment here, at least where I live in Tallahassee, where the first day of school, trying to get community dads to come to some of our Title I schools to be their first day of school, kind of lined up outside the front door, really greeting students as they arrive. Some of these young people live in single parent homes. They really haven't had a father figure in the household. I've had the privilege of doing that because my kids go to Florida High, which is not a part of the Leon County school schedule. They start school a couple of days earlier than Leon County. So I've had a chance to go and not miss my kids' first day of school. But it's amazing to see faces light up when you have these dads lined up from all socioeconomic status, all races, cheering the kids on, high-fiving them, giving them words of encouragement. But it's also interesting to see some kids who've never had that fatherly affirmation given to them. And so I think that's very, very important for us in that regard. Dexter, allow me to ask you, You mentioned your son, for example, playing football, and you mentioned the young people you bring over to the house. When you do that, you talk to those young people, what do you give us an example of what you hear sometimes from the young people that you invited to your home, who may come from a non-father household?
I get the support. Like, man, it's amazing how you support your son. You know how you're at every game, every away game. You know, like, you know, the team that he plays on, we pretty much travel far west is Sarasota, far north is D-Land. And, you know, I pride myself on trying to be there for every game. Of course, I can't, but, you know, just giving them the support and the kids that sees that, and you'll see them draw themselves to you. Like when we're getting ready to go to a game, hey, Mr. Nelson, can I ride with you? You know what I'm saying? And that just kind of lets me know that they're warming up to me. They like the father figure, the example that I'm putting forth for them. And they're hungry for that. They need that. You know, they're looking for it. And unfortunately, they don't have it. But if I can help, I'm here for it.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Christopher, a question came from the audience. If you wouldn't mind slowly repeating the 5 skills that you aforementioned.
Right, and there are really 5 traits, and there's skills within these traits.
Gotcha.
So the first is self-awareness, and the second is caring for self. So those 2 traits really have to do with the individual, and that's where it starts. So in working with dads, you've got to start with that individual before you start to focus on the other 3 traits, which are fathering skills, parenting skills, and relationship skills. If you don't build the man first, it's difficult to build the father second.
Wow. If you wouldn't mind, keep expounding upon that. That's really good counsel.
Yeah, absolutely. So back to the reason why we created a cross-cultural program. There are lots of different kinds of dads out there, and you can kind of slice them and dice them into lots of different categories. But rather than try to create a program that would work for each specific type of dads, we created a program that works with all dads. So this is something, first of all, that research has shown is effective, but also, and you've heard it from both you, Derek, and Dexter, when you have a program like 24/7 Dad that works everywhere with the diversity of dads, you start to find dads going through the same program, building the same set of traits that research shows mark an effective dad. And you see organizations start to connect across the country who are running the same program and can learn from one another. And again, that's one of the things I encourage everyone to do. One of the things we've seen, and particularly in the last 10 to 15 years, is a huge buildup of capacity in communities around working specifically with dads. That's one of the things we're so happy about, but there's still a lot of work to do. But as that capacity is built, it's important to build a community of individuals who are working with dads, and then to connect dads with each other. Because one of the things that our networks do as men is typically it's for the exchange of information and material goods. We often don't talk with each other, just kind of off the cuff, about our role as parents. And that's because we don't have safe places to do that. And because men are not raised to raise children like women are raised to raise children. So we have to create very intentional and proactive ways for men to come together and learn as men how to be better fathers. And so they can create that supportive environment that so many men who grow up don't have around being the best parent that they can be.
Thank you for that, Christopher. Our time is nearing an end, but there's a question from the audience that I did want to pose. The question is, how do we balance speaking directly to dads and hosting programs or activities for them while being sensitive and inclusive of families who don't have a dad present? And I'll ask it again, how do we balance speaking directly to dads and hosting programs and activities for them while being sensitive and inclusive of families who don't have a dad present? Dexter, I'll start with you. Any response to that question?
Well, you know, we have father dads, you know, The big issue was, you know, the mom started coming, and thankfully I had a center supervisor who was a woman who standards. No women allowed. This is a father-daughter dance. You got a brother, you have an uncle, you have a grandfather, you have some male figure in your life that you could send to come to this dance with your child. It's a thin line, you know, because we don't want to offend mothers, but we want to promote the fathers. We want to get them involved, you know. And then in a lot of cases, when you do have a fatherhood engagement program, some men who's trying to come into the fold won't feel comfortable with a woman in a room opening up and talking about what's preventing them from being the father, their true feelings, and, you know, and et cetera. So you have to play it hard, but you still have to be firm and say, you know, this is a fatherhood group, and we trying to promote the actions of a man becoming a father. So it's a tricky situation.
Yes,
you
sir.
just have to play it by your audience, I guess you could say.
Okay. Christopher, that same question, if you can give us a response to that one.
Yeah, I think Dexter hit on it, which is talk with those families, first of all, about why you're doing this work, why it's so important that you do this work, and that it in no way denigrates the role of the mom or ignores the situation that faces them when the dad's not involved. But try to involve those families as much as possible by asking whether there's a father figure involved in the lives of their children. Because what we find with a lot of our programs is that father figures attend them because they've stepped in and are playing the role of a male mentor. And so they want to learn the same skills that dads learn. So we see boyfriends, we see uncles, we see other significant males who are involved in the lives of children with those families coming in and being involved.
Thank you both. Our last question, round robin, if you can give me a 15-second answer, both of you, and then we'll wrap with this. What is one actionable step individuals or organizations listening today can take to better recognize and acknowledge fathers in their work? Dexter, we'll start with you.
It's simple, just acknowledge them. I heard from fathers that Head Start, like, say, I walk in out the classroom and all they say is, tell mom to call me, tell mom to call me. Why? Talk to that father. He's there. Make him feel like he's welcome. Hey, Dad, I had a problem with little Bobby today, such and such and such. Don't say, hey, Dad, tell mom to call me about little Bobby. Why? I'm here.
Talk to the father. That's the summary of that one. Christopher, if you can give me a quick response to that as well.
Yeah, and it links back to something I said before, Derek, which is acknowledge that unique and irreplaceable role the dads play in children's lives. Talk to dads who are not as involved as they need to be about why it's so important that they get involved. Because dads care and they want to hear why it's important that they're involved.
Thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for the opportunity to be a part of this panel. If you will, thank Mr. Christopher Brown and Mr. Dexter Nelson for their time as well.